Have you ever wondered why you feel so exhausted even though you're always the one helping, always the one showing up, always the one being kind? It's confusing, right? You give your heart, your time, your energy. But deep down, there's this quiet ache, a voice that says, "Why does it feel like I'm the only one trying?" That's not weakness. That's a warning signal. And if you've ever felt that way, this message is for you. Most people won't say it out loud, but being too nice is slowly destroying them from the inside. Not because kindness is bad. Kindness is beautiful. But because somewhere along the way you were taught that your value comes from making everyone else happy. You were taught that your worth is tied to being liked, to never causing waves, to always putting others first, no matter how you feel. And now, you smile when you're hurt. You say yes when everything in you wants to say no. You carry burdens that were never yours to carry. But here's the truth. You're not tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because you're doing too much for people who don't even see your worth. You're tired because you're always shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You stay quiet to avoid arguments. You give even when you're empty. And somewhere along the line, you forgot what it feels like to be free. Free from the pressure to please, to be enough, to be perfect. Here's the reward if you keep listening. By the time we're done, you'll no longer apologize for who you are. You'll stop feeling guilty for setting boundaries. You'll realize that your kindness is a gift, but it's not something to be exploited. Psychology tells us that the need for approval is deeply wired into the human brain. It starts in childhood. If you were rewarded for being the good one, the quiet one, the helpful one, your mind learned that love is conditional. That in order to be accepted, you have to overextend, overgive, and overlook your own needs. So now, even as an adult, you feel guilty when you choose yourself. That's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to change it. The world doesn't reward the nicest person. It rewards the one who knows their value and acts like it. People-pleasing might get you a few fake smiles, but it will never bring you real peace. Real peace comes when you stop begging for scraps of attention and start giving yourself the love and respect you keep giving away for free. Let this sink in. You don't have to say yes just to be liked. You don't have to agree with everyone to be loved. You don't have to make yourself small so others can feel big. Being too nice is not noble. It's self-betrayal when it costs you your mental health, your dreams, your voice. Deep down, you already know this. You've felt the sting of being taken for granted. You've been the one who always shows up, but nobody shows up for you. You've had your kindness mistaken for weakness, and still, you give more, hoping that one day someone will see your effort. But that day never comes. Because the more you give without boundaries, the more people expect. Not out of malice, but because you taught them that you'll always be there, no matter what. That's not love. That's not respect. That's dependency, and it's killing your spirit. You were not born to be a doormat. You were born with a voice, with a purpose, with a right to say, "I matter too." There's a version of you that doesn't carry everyone else's weight, a version of you that wakes up excited, not drained. A version of you that smiles because you're full, not because you're faking it. It's time to meet that version of you. And that begins by understanding this. Your kindness should never cost you your peace. It should never silence your truth. It should never drain your soul. You can be kind and still say no. You can be generous and still protect your energy. You can be loving without losing yourself. Because if being nice means destroying your happiness, sacrificing your boundaries, and losing your identity, then it's time to stop being nice and start being real. You owe yourself that much. You were taught to please others before you even knew who you were. Maybe it started in your family, where being quiet and obedient got you praise. Maybe you learned that love had to be earned, that affection only came when you were doing something for someone else. So you made yourself useful. You became the helper, the fixer, the one everyone relied on. And now you don't know how to say no without feeling like a bad person. This pattern isn't just behavior, it's survival. The mind learns quickly. If being agreeable helped you avoid conflict or rejection, then your brain filed it away as a safety strategy. But what kept you safe back then is destroying you now. Because you're not living, you're performing. You're constantly adjusting who you are to fit into what others expect. That's not kindness, that's self-erasure. Psychologically, this is called fawning. It's a trauma response. It means you're more focused on keeping others happy than expressing your own truth. You don't want to upset anyone. You fear being seen as selfish. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You over-explain. You overcommit. And every time you do, you chip away at your self-respect. Here's the truth. People who truly care about you won't disappear when you say no. They won't get angry when you set boundaries. They won't guilt trip you when you protect your time. The ones who leave were never really with you. They were with the version of you that served them. You don't have to keep earning your place in the lives of people who wouldn't lift a finger for you. The constant pleasing is not love. It's fear. It's fear of abandonment, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. But you are enough, without proving anything, without sacrificing your peace. Stop making yourself small to keep others comfortable. You were not born to serve everyone's needs except your own. The people who matter will never demand that you destroy yourself to make them happy. When you constantly put others first, you eventually lose yourself. That's the hidden cost of being too nice. It doesn't show up all at once. It builds slowly. One favor here, one silent sacrifice there, one more yes when your heart is screaming no. Until one day you wake up wondering why you feel invisible, why no one checks on you, why your needs are never considered. It's because you've trained the world to believe that you don't have any. This is the people-pleasing trap. At first it feels good. You feel appreciated, needed. You get validation from being the one who always says yes. But over time, that validation turns into expectation. People stop asking. They just assume you'll say yes. And if you don't, they get offended, surprised, even angry. Not because you did something wrong, but because you finally acted like your time matters too. This trap is dangerous. It teaches you to ignore your own limits. You push yourself past exhaustion. You suppress your feelings to avoid conflict. You say what others want to hear, even when it goes against your truth. And worst of all, you believe that this is what makes you a good person. But good doesn't mean broken. Good doesn't mean voiceless. Good doesn't mean living in emotional pain so others can be comfortable. Psychologically, your brain is wired to seek connection and belonging. But true connection can't exist where honesty is missing. If people only like you when you agree with them, that's not connection. That's control. And every time you betray yourself to fit in, you lose the part of you that wants to stand tall. It's not selfish to want balance. It's not wrong to protect your time, your peace, your energy. In fact, it's necessary. Because the more you give without boundaries, the more people will take without gratitude. And slowly you begin to feel resentment. You begin to question your worth. Not because you're not valuable, but because you've been spending your life giving pieces of yourself to people who never earned them. Being nice isn't the problem. But when your niceness becomes a mask to hide fear, that's when it starts breaking you. There's a difference between kindness and fear-driven behavior. True kindness comes from strength. It's firm, clear, and conscious. But being too nice often comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. So you become agreeable, even when it hurts. You stay quiet, even when something feels wrong. You give more, just to feel safe. This is where the confusion begins. You think you're being kind, but in reality you're shrinking. You think you're keeping the peace, but you're creating internal chaos. That kind of niceness isn't a strength. It's a survival tactic. And survival mode will never lead you to a fulfilled life. The danger is that people rarely notice what you're sacrificing. They see your smile. They hear your soft words. They see your willingness to help, but they don't see the pain underneath. They don't see the silent battles you fight to keep everyone else happy while you fall apart inside. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing that this is your role, to serve, to support, to stay silent. But that's not your purpose. That's programming, and it's time to break it. You were not put on this earth to constantly prove your goodness by draining yourself for others. Kindness is not about being passive. It's about being honest. It's about knowing your value and treating yourself with the same compassion you give to everyone else. Because if your kindness costs you your dignity, your time, your voice, it's not kindness anymore. It's fear wearing a friendly face. You can choose differently. You can be kind without being controlled. You can care without being consumed. You can give without giving yourself away. And when you do, you don't just protect your peace. You inspire others to do the same. You stop being just nice and become powerful. And that's the version of you the world truly needs. The more you give without limits, the less people appreciate it. That's the brutal truth. When you're always available, always agreeable, always saying yes, people start to expect it. What was once seen as generous becomes something they feel entitled to. And the moment you pull back, the moment you ask for space or say no, they act like you've changed. But the only thing that's changed is that you finally remembered your worth. Human psychology is wired to adapt. When you constantly show up without setting boundaries, others adapt to that. They no longer see your effort as a choice, they see it as your role. That's why being too nice lowers your value in their eyes. Not because kindness is weakness, but because you've shown them that you don't require balance. You've shown them that your time, your energy, your presence comes with no limits, no conditions, no expectations. This doesn't make them bad people. It just means you've trained them to see you a certain way. And now, you feel the consequences. You feel the one-sidedness. You feel the emotional fatigue. You give, and in return you receive silence, neglect, or shallow gratitude. That's not love. That's not respect. That's convenience. Your value doesn't decrease when you stop overgiving. It increases. Because self-respect is magnetic. When you draw the line and honor yourself, you teach others how to treat you. You teach them that your kindness is not to be mistaken for weakness. You teach them that you have standards, that your energy is sacred, and that access to you is a privilege, not a guarantee. The truth is, people notice when you change. They notice when you stop being overly available. And some will push back, not because you're doing something wrong, but because your boundaries reveal who was benefiting from your lack of them. Don't fear that. Let it guide you. Because the people who truly value you will respect your growth, not resist it. When you finally start setting boundaries, something powerful happens. You begin to see people's true colors. The ones who only stayed around because of what you could do for them will suddenly distance themselves. Not because you were wrong, but because you stopped being easy to use. And that's not a loss. That's clarity. That's your freedom taking shape. For so long, you believed that being liked was the goal. So, you worked hard to be agreeable, helpful, and low maintenance. You thought that if you were easy to be around, people would value you more, but the opposite happened. The easier you made their lives, the more they expected from you. And in the process, your own needs were buried beneath their comfort. Psychology shows us that people treat us based on the standards we set. If you accept being treated like an option, you will never be a priority. If you keep giving without asking for anything in return, you teach them that you require nothing. And when you finally speak up, they act confused, because you trained them to believe that your silence meant satisfaction. But silence often hides resentment, and now that resentment is ready to be released. This is the beginning of real self-worth. It's when you realize you don't need everyone to like you. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to be respected by the right people. And that starts with respecting yourself first. You're not here to carry the emotional weight of everyone around you.
For others react when you decide to honor your limits.
The right people won't punish you for protecting your peace. They'll support you. They'll adjust, not because you demand it, but because they value who you are, not just what you give. The truth is, when you stop being too nice, you don't become cold. You become clear. You stop chasing validation and start choosing yourself. That's not selfish. That's growth. There comes a moment when you realize that protecting your peace is more important than pleasing anyone. You reach a point where the discomfort of always being the nice one outweighs the fear of disappointing others. And in that moment, everything shifts. You stop asking for permission to be yourself. You stop apologizing for choosing rest over overcommitment. You stop feeling guilty for walking away from people who only drained you. This is not a sign of becoming hard, it's a sign of healing. You're finally putting yourself back in the equation. You're no longer living to meet expectations that were never yours to begin with. You're learning that your needs are valid, your time is valuable, your emotions matter. You've spent years silencing yourself to maintain harmony, but that harmony came at the cost of your well-being, and that price is far too high. When you choose to value yourself, something powerful happens. You become more peaceful, not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer fighting yourself. You no longer carry the tension of pretending to be okay when you're not. You stop the mental tug-of-war between being kind and being real. You understand now, they can coexist. You can still be kind, but you don't have to tolerate disrespect. You can still care, but you don't have to carry everyone's burdens. Psychologically, this shift rewires your mind. You go from reacting to others' needs to responding to your own. You stop seeking constant approval because you finally feel worthy within. That internal validation becomes your anchor. It's what allows you to walk away from situations that once held power over you. You're not cold. You're conscious. You're not rude. You're rooted. The truth is, when you stop betraying yourself just to be liked, you start to feel alive again. You begin to rebuild a relationship with yourself. And that relationship becomes the foundation for every other part of your life. You don't lose people by being honest. You lose the illusion that you needed to be anyone but yourself. When you stop sacrificing your truth for temporary peace, you begin to feel real freedom, not the kind that's loud or dramatic, but the quiet kind. The kind that settles deep in your chest and tells you that you no longer have to pretend. You no longer have to wear the mask of the nice one just to be accepted. You finally realize that your authenticity is more valuable than any approval you could ever chase. And it feels different. It feels like strength, because standing in your truth, especially after years of shrinking, takes courage. It's not easy to unlearn the habit of pleasing. It's not easy to break the cycle of seeking worth in other people's comfort. But every time you say no when your heart needs rest, every time you speak up instead of staying silent, every time you choose yourself, you take back a piece of your power. This is what real confidence looks like. Not arrogance, not pride, just self-respect. Just knowing that your voice matters, that your feelings are valid, that you don't owe anyone access to you just because they expect it. You start to understand that you were never too much. You were just giving too much of yourself to people who gave too little in return. The mind begins to shift. You stop wondering what others will think, and you start asking yourself what you need. You stop fearing disconnection, and you begin craving truth. And as you get clearer on who you are, your world changes. Some people drift away, but the right ones come closer. The ones who respect boundaries, the ones who value honesty, the ones who don't want you for what you can give, but for who you truly are. You don't need to bend over backward to be loved. You don't need to water yourself down to be accepted. You just need to show up fully, real, honest, imperfect, and whole. That version of you, that's the version that sets you free. Choosing yourself doesn't mean turning your back on others. It means you stop turning your back on yourself. For too long, you've measured your worth by how much you could do for everyone else. You gave until you were empty. You listened until your own voice got lost. You stood by others even when they never stood by you. And in doing so, you taught yourself that your needs could wait, that your feelings were second, that love meant self-abandonment. But love doesn't demand your silence. Real connection doesn't require you to be smaller, softer, or less honest. You don't need to carry the weight of others just to be seen as valuable. You are allowed to be whole. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to walk away from anything that doesn't support your peace. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Psychologically, this is the beginning of self-trust. Every time you honor what feels right for you, you send a message to your mind that you are safe with yourself, that you will not keep betraying your own heart just to make others comfortable. And the more you choose yourself, the more your confidence grows. Not because everything gets easier, but because you finally believe that your needs are just as important as anyone else's. People may not understand your growth. They may question your choices. They may call you distant, different, or difficult. But that's okay. You're not responsible for their comfort. You're responsible for your healing. And healing means breaking patterns. It means disappointing others so you can stop disappointing yourself. It means letting go of the version of you who always had to prove their worth just to feel seen. You've done enough proving. Now it's time to live, to breathe, to rise without asking for permission. Because the strongest thing you'll ever do is decide that your peace, your truth, and your self-respect are non-negotiable. That's how you stop being destroyed by being too nice. That's how you become whole. There is a silent strength in learning to walk away, not with anger, not with noise, but with clarity. When you spent most of your life trying to be the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who holds it all together, it feels unfamiliar to step back. It feels uncomfortable to let go. But that discomfort is part of the healing. Because for the first time, you're not trying to control how others see you. You're simply choosing how you see yourself. And that shift, choosing yourself, is where power begins. You're not cutting people off out of bitterness. You're closing chapters that no longer serve your growth. You're not isolating yourself. You're creating space to hear your own voice again. You're not being cold. You're being conscious of the energy you allow into your life. It's human nature to want to be liked, to feel needed, to be part of something. But that need becomes a trap when it's tied to your self-worth. You start tolerating things you know you shouldn't. You excuse behaviors that drain your spirit. You wear a smile when your soul is exhausted, all just to keep the illusion of harmony. But real harmony begins inside. It's the result of choosing alignment over approval, truth over performance, peace over people-pleasing. Psychologically, this is self-liberation. It's the process of unlearning false beliefs about your worth. It's where you stop performing and start living. You stop managing others' emotions and start managing your boundaries. You no longer say yes because you're afraid to lose people. You say yes only when it feels right to you. And as you grow stronger in this, you begin to notice how your energy changes. You become calmer, more present, less reactive, because you're no longer scattered trying to please the world. You've come home to yourself. You've accepted that not everyone will understand your path, and that's okay. You're not here to be everything to everyone. You're here to be true to you. The moment you stop trying to be everything for everyone, you create room to be something real for yourself. That's where your inner power starts to build. You no longer chase people who never chose you. You no longer explain your boundaries to those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer shrink just to fit into places that never saw your full worth to begin with. And this change, it doesn't make you unkind, it makes you whole. You begin to realize that love without respect is not love, that kindness without limits becomes a burden, that giving without being received eventually empties you. And when you reach that place of exhaustion, something inside you awakens. You begin to see that protecting your energy isn't rude, it's required. That being unavailable to disrespect is not arrogance, it's clarity. You've just spent too long giving people more than they earned. Human behavior adapts to what we allow. And when we constantly show up at the expense of our own peace, we teach others that we don't need care, that we don't need rest, that we don't need anything in return. But the truth is, you do. You need reciprocity. You need respect. You need space to breathe without guilt. Because if everything is always about others, then where do you exist in your own life? This is about balance, about not losing yourself while trying to love others, about giving without destroying yourself. You were never meant to be a backup plan in your own story. You were never meant to carry everyone else while neglecting your own weight. The world told you that being selfless makes you good, but being endlessly selfless makes you invisible. And invisibility is not peace, it's pain disguised as purpose. So now, you choose differently. You choose visibility. You choose presence. You choose to matter to yourself first. Because when you treat yourself with value, the world starts to follow your lead. And that is how you rise, quietly, powerfully, authentically. When you start choosing yourself, the world reacts. Some people will pull away. Some will criticize. Some will try to guilt you back into your old patterns. But don't let that confuse you. Their resistance doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something different, something they can't control anymore. And people don't like losing access to the version of you that always said yes even when it hurt. But growth demands discomfort. You can't heal while staying in the same roles that broke you. You can't become who you're meant to be if you keep shrinking to keep the peace. The discomfort you feel now is temporary. The regret of staying small lasts a lifetime. And deep down, you know this. You felt the cost of being too nice. You felt the exhaustion of constantly holding it together. You felt the pain of pretending everything is fine while your own needs go unheard. This is your turning point. You no longer operate from guilt. You operate from truth. You no longer perform for applause. You act in alignment with your values. You don't owe anyone endless explanations for your boundaries. A person who truly values you won't need them. They'll honor your space because they honor your soul. And if they don't, that's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of where they are, and a signal for you to keep going. Psychologically, this shift is empowering. You begin to recognize patterns. You start to choose peace over approval, even if it means being misunderstood. You start to understand that love isn't proven through sacrifice. It's proven through presence, through honesty, through mutual respect. And that begins with how you love yourself. The moment you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you start attracting the people who truly see you, not for how much you give, not for how much you agree, but for who you are when you finally stand in your truth. That version of you, that bold, clear, grounded version, is who the world truly needs. You were not put on this earth to be a mirror for everyone else's comfort. You were born with your own mind, your own heart, own voice. And when you finally stop hiding behind politeness, you begin to hear that voice again. It's been there all along, whispering, warning, reminding you of your own needs. You just got so used to silencing it to avoid conflict, to maintain harmony, to keep others happy. But what about your harmony? What about your happiness? Too many people confuse kindness with compliance. They expect you to bend because you always have. But kindness doesn't mean tolerating everything. It doesn't mean saying yes to things that make your spirit ache. Real kindness includes yourself. And when you finally include yourself in the equation, something powerful shifts. You stop explaining your worth. You stop chasing validation. You stop overextending to prove that you're enough. This isn't selfish. It's self-honoring. It's a conscious decision to stop making yourself small in a world that benefits from your silence. And it's not easy. Your nervous system will resist. Your old patterns will try to pull you back. You'll feel guilt rise when you say no. You'll feel doubt creep in when you stand firm. But that's not a sign to quit. That's proof you're changing. Growth always feels like discomfort before it feels like peace. The truth is, you can be kind without being a doormat. You can be loving without being used. You can care deeply and still walk away from what wounds you. And you must. Because when you don't protect your energy, you teach people that it's okay to drain it. When you don't protect your time, you show them that it's okay to waste it. But when you protect your soul, when you finally stand up for yourself, you show the world how you deserve to be treated. And that is how everything changes. People will only treat you as well as you require them to. When you constantly put yourself last, you train others to do the same. When you always say yes, even when your heart says no, you teach them that your boundaries are flexible, your needs are optional, and your peace is disposable. That's not humility, that's self-neglect dressed up as being nice. And over time, it leaves you feeling invisible in your own life. You can be the most generous soul in the room, but if you keep pouring into cups that never pour back into yours, you will run dry. The world won't stop to refill you. It's your job to pause, to check in, to ask yourself, am I living for others' expectations, or am I honoring what I truly need? That one question can shift your entire life, because when you begin honoring yourself, you stop tolerating the things that drain you. You stop pretending you're fine when you're not. You stop overcompensating in relationships where you're only valued for what you give. Psychologically, people-pleasing often comes from a fear of rejection. A fear that if we say no, we'll lose love. That if we disappoint someone, we'll be left behind. But here's the truth. If your love must come with self-abandonment, it's not love. It's survival. And survival mode is not where you thrive. You thrive when your connections are mutual, when your presence is appreciated, not demanded, when your no is respected as much as your yes. This shift may rattle some people. They were used to your silence, your flexibility, your endless support. But those who genuinely care about you will adjust. They'll adapt to the version of you that's done betraying yourself. And those who walk away, let them. They were only attached to your compliance, not your truth. You're not here to keep the peace by sacrificing your own. You're here to live boldly, love deeply, and protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. The more you start showing up for yourself, the more you'll realize how many moments in your life were spent trying to be accepted instead of being free. You'll remember conversations where you bit your tongue just to avoid tension. You'll remember times when you went along with things that didn't feel right just to keep someone else comfortable. And slowly, those memories won't make you angry. They'll open your eyes. Because they'll show you how often you abandoned yourself for peace that was never truly peace. It was quiet, yes, but it came at the cost of your truth. And now, you don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to scream your boundaries to be taken seriously. You just need to know them, live them, walk in them without apology. The moment you stop negotiating your worth is the moment others start recognizing it. That's the law of human behavior. People respond to what you demand by how you treat yourself. When you move with self-respect, you teach the world how to respect you. It's not about building walls. It's about building clarity. It's not about pushing people away. It's about deciding who gets close. Not everyone deserves access to your time, your heart, or your mind. And that's not bitterness, it's wisdom. Life is too short to keep explaining your soul to people who only listen when you're useful. Too precious to keep watering relationships that only bloom when it benefits them. You've done enough. You've given enough. Now, it's your season to reclaim your energy. Real confidence comes from knowing that you can love people deeply and still walk away when they treat you like an option. That you can care and still choose distance. That you can have a soft heart and still hold strong boundaries. And when you finally understand this, you no longer feel guilty for protecting your peace. You feel grounded. You feel aligned. You feel free.